Welcome to See You at the Table, where stories meet grace. Here we gather, not just to speak, but to listen. If you want to witness how God brings people together from all around the world through powerful testimonies, tune in and see you at the table. Here's today's host.
All right, here we go. We got an exciting episode here. Ian is back with us.
It's me again.
From Chile. All right, and we have a really fun guest, Philemon, all the way from Egypt. And so we're excited to hear your story today, seeing at the table. But tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to see you. Yeah.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Philemon. I am from Egypt. I'm an orthodox Christian. I came to see you to study pre-medicine, so I can become a surgeon at some point. That was like my life dream, and hopefully I can achieve it. Right now I'm in the pre-medicine program, and I think that's mostly it.
Yeah, but why Campbellsville? Like of all, because you're from Egypt, right? And what part of Egypt are you from?
Minya.
All right. For
that a
none of us who know what that is,
Yeah.
tell us where in that country is.
Mania. Don't you know Mania?
No, it's kind of like down south.
There we go.
It's like almost Kentucky compared to the US, like middle south.
Okay, so you're like the Kentucky of Egypt.
Kind of, yeah.
All right. And how and why see you? I mean, that's a trip right there.
How I don't know. It just came up, to be honest.
Yeah.
Why especially see you? I had a friend. I think he was in New York, and then he transferred into here.
Okay.
His parents are Egyptian, but he was born and raised here. I met him. He came here and graduated from here. So he suggested this university to me, and he said it's not bad. And to be honest, the most motivating thing was 50% student international rate.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of
Money talks, right? In that
to
sense.
be honest.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you're here though. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is the university expensive or cheap compared to the US here?
Great question.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially compared to our economy, because like since I got here, I can't dare to ask my parents for any financial support. Plus, they can't send me any financial support even if they wanted, because Egypt is in a really bad financial situation right now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially about all of the wars that is going on.
Right.
Like
getting
the
crazy.
dollar rate, the dollar value doubled in the last 2 years that I've been here.
Really?
So it was like dollar equal to like $25, 25 Egyptian pounds. Now the dollar equals to like almost 60.
Wow.
So that really hits the economy bad.
Yeah.
So
Well, I just love it that you're here. I think that's Campbellsville is a small little school in the middle of Kentucky, but I love. I mean, even this conversation, we got a guy from Chile, we got a guy from Egypt. It amazes me and that's one of the things we want to do this podcast is kind of highlight those stories, that story of how you got here, but really that story of your faith. And I've had the opportunity to hear a little bit about your story and some of those things that God has walked you through, but maybe let's just start there. If you would just tell us a little bit about your faith journey and what that's looked like for you.
well, I was born and raised in an Orthodox household. My dad's an Orthodox priest, and I always went to church. I always loved the church. I always I try my best to be a good guy, although I know that I'm not, but I'm trying to be a Christian. I'm trying to be a good person. I love all of our church, all of the history of it, all of the tradition of it. I really love sticking to it and following it as much as I can. One of my favorites is fasting, which I really love, and I do it almost 200 days out of the 365 of the year. So it teaches me a lot. It teaches you a lot. It has a lot of great values, which is one of the biggest ones, like discipline. Makes you stronger in faith, which is very great. And that's it.
Well, I have never heard about somebody who likes fasting, or at least
rare. I
genuinely.
think there's something wrong with him, don't you?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever enjoyed fasting.
how are people in Egypt down there? Do they normally like fasting, or
Is
are
that a
you an
cultural thing?
outlier?
What?
Is that kind of a cultural thing? Like,
No, it's well, I do it for okay, so to give some context, in general, view in Egypt, fasting is pretty known because Egypt has only two religions, either Christians or Muslims.
okay.
And Muslims fast for like a month
Oh,
in
yes.
the year, which is everyone knows about. But Christians as well, we fast like whenever the early church fathers did and the early church fasted, we try to do the same as they did. So it's kind of not new perspective culturally. Um, so you had a question?
There's so many questions because
Yeah.
one of the things, though, that if you were to, in a nutshell, and summarize Orthodox, your experience with Eastern Orthodox Church, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you, just so everybody kind of gets a grasp on when you're saying that phrase, if you had to summarize kind of what that is and what your experience has been, what would
So,
you say?
being an Orthodox mean traditional. So, being an Orthodox, we like to believe that we stuck to the tradition and to the way that the apostles and the early church fathers used to pray and live their daily life as, which what they were doing, they were trying to be as close to Jesus in his day-to-day life as possible.
Nice. Yeah.
That's basically what an Orthodox means. It's not something. It's a life. It's not just something that
Right.
you say you are. It's a life. You have to live it.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, as a Christian, sometimes that gets, and that's been a cool conversation in this, that Christianity is more than a religion, and it's not just like a psychological concept. It is a life that's lived.
Absolutely, it's a way of life.
And so,
well said.
I feel like Ian's about on the edge of his seat. I feel like, were you about to ask a question? I didn't want to interrupt you, man.
I actually had a question, but I just forgot it. So let's keep going. And
Yeah, man. So I think that's the reason I just wanted to ask that, because I don't think a lot of people
I
know
just
maybe what that means, or definitely have not probably maybe always had a conversation with somebody who grew up in that tradition, and
Yeah.
like you have.
Around here, it's not that popular, but like, I would recommend just church history.
Yeah, yeah.
It will be like if you read church history, you will know exactly
Right.
what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
what exactly I am.
absolutely. And I just wanted to ask you as well how it has been for you to live or try to live out your Orthodox faith here in the U.S.
That's a good question.
Because I know, for example, there are not Orthodox churches everywhere. So if you want to go to one, you have to travel longer distances.
To be honest, yeah, it's been kind of challenging since I got here. The closest one is in Louisville. It's like an hour and a half away. Plus the fasting situation, which I should explain what fasting is stop eating certain foods for a certain period of times.
So, okay, so you mean certain foods, not all kinds of foods?
So
Is it more like
there is
abstinence from
there is
meat?
two versions of fasting. There is long fasting, and there is just, or like, let's say 2 degrees of fasting. The first degree, which is you stay from midnight until the church is dismissed, which is around like 5 p.m., with no food or water. And then afterwards, you only eat basically vegan stuff, no animal products whatsoever. In the second degree of fasting, which is a little bit easier, which is you don't do the period with no food and water, and you can eat sea products, which is
Sea
like
products.
any fish
Only
and etc.
only sea products, not
That is the
grains or
only kind of
fruits.
protein that you can eat.
But you could
And you
also
can do like fruits, vegetables. Basically, that's how you live the fasting. It's fruit, vegetables.
okay. So it
That's
seems
it.
to be more like abstinence in the Catholic Church,
Yeah,
where you
it's
don't eat
exactly like
meat.
it. Yeah.
So obviously, discipline is a big part of your faith journey. That's a core kind of thread that we've even heard in these few minutes. What would you say how has that not necessarily just fasting, but discipline, being a disciplined person in your faith, had an impact on your journey?
I've well, if you're disciplined in faith, if you're disciplined by fasting, so like if you decided to do it and you never skipped a day, you never went easy, you will do that with everything. So if you're disciplined with fasting, you will be disciplined with your studies. You got a class today, or you have an exam tomorrow, or you've been in university. You should take this as a responsibility and be disciplined enough so you can make it happen and you don't do something that will mess it up. It also teaches you being disciplined with your emotions and your reactions. So not anything will happen because you can control yourself. It teaches you more than discipline, control. So you can keep yourself, if you keep yourself from food, by time you can keep yourself from doing other things, which is
yeah, that
way
are
bigger and way more impactful than
Yeah.
eating. Like eating is not the main reason. It's a part of the journey that teaches you to keep yourself from doing stuff, keep yourself from making a mistake, keep yourself from being angry. Even if you got angry, you should be disciplined enough to control your anger.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of how sometimes people look at disciplines as very human centric. So it's something that we do, right? But when you look at Scripture, when you look at the faith, it's something that God is also working and empowering through. So, when you look at the fruits of the Spirit that Paul talks about in Galatians, one of those is self-control,
Yeah.
right? And so, you have these disciplines that God gives us that are molding and forming us, and that the Spirit is working through to really help you become a more self-controlled person in all these different spaces and places, and that's pretty big. That's a big deal, and the reason I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about discipline as well, because you live in a place, you grew up in a place that might not always be super easy to be a Christian and to follow Christ, and so share a little bit about that. Some of your just journey in faith and being in a space where sometimes it's not maybe the easiest thing in the world to do.
Well, that is part of it as well. You should be consistent and steady in your beliefs, no matter what and no matter how tempting the other was. As everyone knows, the Middle East is not the nicest place for Christians in general. Egypt, I'm not gonna say it's the worst place, but let's say it's either second or the third out of the 22 countries.
Really, so it's pretty difficult.
It's
in essence.
pretty challenging. Like, what gives it away is your name. So I have a biblical name. Philemon is a biblical name.
So your name is an indicator to everybody what faith you're in, basically.
Exactly. And we usually don't use last names. We use father's and grandfather name. So my name will give away that I'm Christian and my dad is a priest. So whenever I go to like any even governmental place and I say like my name is Philemonarchus, which everyone recognize, okay, you're a Christian. It's like you can feel the mood changes. All the treatment is different. If something can get done in a day, it can take you a month.
So you're saying because you're Christian, things might be more difficult even on the governmental side, like
Yeah,
going to get your license or something and it takes forever.
yeah,
kind of
that is just the governmental side.
Yeah.
When we come to the personal side, there is no limits of what you can see or deal with.
So have you seen persecution in your country in that sense? Yeah.
I did. I got in countless discussions and fights about being a Christian. Some people just can come up to you and just try to start a fight with you just purely because they found out that you're a Christian.
And are they from another religion or
They're,
atheists?
they're Muslims, all of them.
Okay, so almost always.
Because you said it's kind of like really two.
It's two. Like
You're either a
there's
Muslim
not-
or a Christian in Egypt, yeah.
Yeah.
Is atheism or agnosticism, is that not very common in Egypt?
It's like very, very few people. It's
So
but-
typically you're religious in some kind of way.
yeah. Yeah, it's always that you're religious, but very few people, not that much. If people are atheist, most people either are Christians or Muslims. If you're Muslim, you just live normally. If you're Christian, just good luck. Like you don't expect the best out of it. Like you go to a place and you just hope the guy doesn't ask your name
Oh,
before he starts talking to you.
It's very interesting,
It's
Like, so, I grew up in the U.S., obviously, so we don't ever really just think about what our name. My wife and I named our kids names very important for meaning and purpose. But, if our kids grew up like Levi or Nehemiah, those are very
Yeah.
biblical names, right? And so
well,
that would mean something really different
and
growing up in Egypt.
surprisingly enough, every Christian still names Christian names and biblical names. We
interesting,
don't
yeah.
kinda like okay, whether his name will be not known. Some names are like in between. You can be Muslim or you can be Christian, but it doesn't really matter. It's not about the name more. It's like the name just gives it away really quick. But if someone wants to treat you bad because you're Christian, they will for no absolute reason.
So how do you think that's formed you spiritually? Like kind of walking in a situation in a context like that? When you look at your inner life and who you are walking with the Lord, how have you seen that impact your formation?
Me personally, the more that I see people treating me bad because I'm Christian, the more I like Christianity more. Because no one treats the bad guy this bad. If you're doing something wrong, most people are not gonna do anything about it. If you're doing something wrong, right, mostly you will find difficulties in the way. So the more difficulties, and Jesus said the way to
did,
heaven is like make it like it's like what's it called, a needle hole, like putting a camel through a
Yeah.
needle hole. It's
It's easier to go through the eye of the needle than
yeah. So if you're rich in faith, you will find difficulties. It's an easy way to hell. It's a hard way to heaven.
Scripture's pretty clear that we as Christians will expect suffering. Like
Yeah.
it's not a maybe it'll happen. It's going to happen in some kind of way.
Exactly. It's like you expect it. So when you receive it, you know that is not surprising.
you know that you are blessed because blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of my name,
Well,
right?
There we go. Yeah.
I hope I am.
And I also like that fortitude that probably you've been able to develop, obviously with the help of the Lord, based on the context where you
Yeah.
grew up, right?
Uh,
Because it requires you to stand and, be
Yeah,
faithful to
it's
your faith, even though
like,
hardships
to be
come.
honest, yeah, like living in a place was where no one thinks that you're right, and they keep like since I was in the middle school, maybe elementary school, people ask you like hard theological questions. Like grown-ups can
wow.
go up to you in school, like your teacher can ask you hard theological questions.
Well, this is kind of like connected to his story a little bit. So I don't know if you know N's faith story, but part of it was that he really wanted to defend the faith. What did he believe? And you're saying that even as a young kid, you're experiencing
Yeah.
tough questions from the get-go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can I like especially like if someone teaches Arabic because in school they have to teach you some of the Quran, which is like the Muslim version of the Bible.
Yeah.
So they ask, sometimes they pick on the 2-3 Christian kids in the class, and they pick on like they like, what do you think about that? How do you explain that? They ask you something about your faith. And you have kind of two options. Either you say you don't know, and they kind of won the argument, or you actually answer,
And then you're in
they
it.
kick you out of the class and they throw in the kind of like. To be honest, it's been pretty bad every time I answered, and the answer, if the answer was kind of embarrassing, it's or sarcastic in any way, they treat you like horrible. Like every time this teacher will walk in the class, you know that he will either kick you out, hit you, make you do more homework than any other kid, suspend you for no absolute reason. Yeah, like you'd never know what will happen after if someone asked you and you answered.
I think your story is just a really good example that following Christ is a challenge, and it's not easy in a broken world. And we, all three of us, have had different experiences in that, even because of where we grew up or the context in which we did. But either way, there's still going to be this challenge of whether, hey, either my will or God's will. When Jesus is praying in the garden, and if you can take this cup from me, then do it, but not my will, but your will be done. And following the Lord's will led to Jesus being on the cross, right? And I think I think that's one of the cool things you're bringing to the table today is this perspective, and this also, I think, we can be like, man, that's really tough, but I think there's a lot of hope in what you're saying, that, this can be tough and difficult, but God gives us the endurance to stand firm and to follow Him.
That's the thing, yeah. It's like the more that you see persecution, the more that you
The more grace you receive.
closer to God. Like the more that you relate to what was happening. Like there is a lot of murders, a lot of people died in the name of the Christ. If you heard their stories, and like you, to be honest, what I do, like whenever something like that happens, I know a lot of stories of great murders. They suffered way more than me. So what we all say, or what I personally say, it's I'm not suffering. Like what's happening to me, it's not that bad.
Yeah, in comparison,
In
right?
comparison
Yeah.
to what could happen, in comparison to what have already happened to Christians before back in the day.
I mean, you just think about the disciples, all but one, are martyred, and so,
Exactly. It's like I'm nothing compared to these guys. That's why I I I don't usually talk about it because I don't think it's that big. There is a lot of greater people in this world than me, and a lot of
yeah.
greater martyrs in history than me. It's not. I'm nobody compared to them.
Well, the question isn't really like, oh, what if I die, or how I die, or what. Really, the question that God is putting in front of us every day is how we're going to live, and how we're going to live for Him, and that
And
type of life will lead somewhere.
and to be honest, I like at some point we had like revolutions. We had a terrorist, which it still exists but not as popular. It's called the Muslim Brotherhood. It's in Egypt. At some point, they wanted to kill all of the Christians, and people can come up to you in the street and they tell you in your face that I will kill you and I will take your house
Wow,
and I will live in your room. Like,
it can be scary, yeah.
well, at the beginning it was a little bit scary, but to be honest, I reached to a point that I used to tell people, if you wanna kill me, do it now, which is like, I don't care anymore. Like, do you think that I'm not getting scared about people telling me that I can kill you or I will kill? Like, okay, do it. I will be happily welcoming dying in the name of Christ.
Man, that's
that will
big.
be.
I saw a quote, and I would kind of have to bring this, I guess, home a little bit here, but so often, Christianity is measured in success. Maybe like, oh, that guy was a good preacher because 4,000 people, accepted Christ or whatever. But I saw this really cool quote that talked about, how, Peter preached, 3,000 came to know Jesus. Stephen preached and he got killed. And, the way we measure the faith walk is really off sometimes. It's about faithfulness, and it's about holding true to the Lord. And that might end up you dying, and also might end up you being a pastor of a really big church or whatever it is. But, man, Philemon, I just appreciate you sharing a little bit of your story. But tell me real quick, if you were going to give a table tip, something for people to take home with them from your journey of faith, something you've learned that would just be helpful for those who are maybe struggling, maybe those this more that are really having a hard time being faithful or holding true. What's a little piece of advice you give them?
The more that you're being faithful, the more that you're gonna suffer. Christianity is not easy. Christianity is not as easy as some people think it is. Christianity is hard. Jesus, the God and Son of God, suffered and died when he came to earth. So don't expect by following him that you will live a luxury or a fun lifestyle. Expect that you will suffer and take joy in this suffer, because the more that you take joy in it, the more that you think about it, it's not suffer, that is faith. That means that I'm right. The more that you're not gonna notice it, the more that it's not gonna affect your life negatively. You will take everything as that's God helping me, and that's right. If that's all of that bad stuff's happening to me, I'm walking in the right path. It's not that hard. It's an easy way to hell. It's a really hard way to heaven.
Wow, man, thanks for sharing. And I think you really just give a picture of that God is enough, regardless of what's going on. But if you see Philemon on campus, you're listening, you should check him out and ask him some questions. I know Ian has a ton more questions he'd love to ask. But, man, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you at the table again.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Campus Ministry at Campbellsville University, where faith, testimony, and dialogue come together. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you at the table next time.